Hello, I'm Jester Borris with I Want to Be a GM, and welcome to D&D Through the Ages Part 2, The Cleric. Be sure to like this video. To ensure that you don't miss any of our future videos, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. In the comments section, let us know some of your favorite times playing a cleric, or some of the times that a cleric in your party got himself in over his head. If you'd like to find the places where we hang out, be sure to check the social links in the video description. In particular, we've got a fairly active Discord, and so if you'd like to join the growing community of game masters over there, you can hop onto Discord and share your best tips, tricks, and stories. We'd love to have you. So join myself, Roy the Planescape Guy, Gwydion the Long-Winded, as we go through the ages with the Cleric in D&D.
We're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for being here. This is part 2 of our series. I Want to Be a GM. This is Clerics Through the Ages. We're here with Troy, also the Planescape Guy, Matt, who's our resident tech, and also Star Wars.
Sci-fi, yeah.
That's right. Sometimes just call them Star Wars. Now that we're back, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to put up with slim pickings.
Yes, I do that.
Everybody out here, they're like, who's that?
It's all good. So, again, guys, welcome back. Thank you very much. Again, D&D Through the Ages, Part 2, The Cleric with I Want to Be a GM. And we're going to jump right into the Red Box edition as a set of 5 boxes. And we had a lot of changes to Cleric. So, one of the things that changed were hit die.
There's a number of things that changed.
So we were dealing with
when
these
they went from these,
yeah,
and started here. Like I was talking to our Mr. Producer. We're still not the first edition yet. This is still pre-first edition basic D&D, late 1970s when a whole bunch of these came out. So we got the blue box, the red box, the not quite green box, the black box, and the gold box. So all of these boxes comprise the rules for basic D&D. And they started with the red box, which was the first rewrite of D&D. And they started expanding a little bit and classifying better, or what we would understand as the classes a little more. So we're going to look at the Cleric and how they write her up here. It's the red book. So, let's see, where'd my list go? Here's my list.
Yep.
So the hit die, blah, blah, blah.
Lies, lies, lies. I'm sorry.
hit die in this edition, I thought was D8.
Yeah.
We also have several mechanics updates. We start to see saving throws. So those are going to be listed in this feature as well. We've got expansion to Pantheon, so we also see expansion, I think, in alignment, or was that AD&D?
No, there's alignment here, but the red box is where they made the first distinction of lawful good, lawful neutral,
Right, so
lawful evil.
Because we went from law and chaos,
Long
to
chaos,
now we have good and evil.
good and evil.
And so basically the 9-square version of that.
Yes,
Yeah.
9-square version of that developed out of these colored boxes.
And that could make some significant changes in the way that you played your cleric, depending on the deity, how you served them, what their focus was, and the world and lore that you were exploring.
So, as I'm looking here at the book, the first thing it talks about is turning undead. The cleric has the power to force away certain monsters called undead. So, you've been playing for a while. You know who those guys are. And as we look at the table, it's the same table from the original books.
Right.
It's where you needed a 7 on to turn them. However, and I want to see it because this is on a die 20.
That's undead spell. So we can turn the book up. Hold your book up.
I'm actually looking at
No.
Greyhawk, which is after that one.
Yeah.
I misspoke that. I misspoke that in the red box. It's still 2d6 to turn undead.
Yeah.
It's still
Still working with
2d6. So I guess the die 20 came in
we're
the
looking
first
at that
edition.
Apologize for some of the misspeaks. It's when you guys go through these editions back to back, like we have in preparation for the series, it gets a little muddy.
It does.
So, and there's just so much. I mean, you can see the books behind us.
Which is why everybody picks one and sticks to it.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes when the new edition comes out.
Yeah, pick one, stick to it.
See that, all right?
Learn it.
All right.
Yeah, so we've got Turn Undead. Those rules and features carried forward from White Box into basic D&D Red edition. So we've got a few expansions. And one of the things that's nice about these books is that they're much better organized.
They are very more organized. You got one book. This book is all for the players. It's about your character classes, your spells, and all your different abilities that you would have. And right here, our hit dice for the cleric is a 6 dice.
So they kept them as a 6 here.
Kept it 6. It's a 1 dice 6 for plus Constitution bonus, if any. So.
And the bonus, they weren't even. So it was nicer to play a cleric because you couldn't get a D4 as a wizard, and that classic first encounter with a rat in a bar. Help me, brave adventurers! Oh no, you're a wizard. So, we didn't write 20 pages of backstory because.
So the one point that Gwydion brought out, at first level in the original box, you still cannot cast spells. Here we are in the red box a couple years later, and I'm going to read this. A cleric has good fighting skills. Can also learn to cast spells after gaining a level of experience. A first level cleric cannot cast any spells.
They haven't learned. They've just decided that they're going to leave the clergy and they're going to go adventuring. They haven't learned the spells, and where the spells came from was later a big subject, not only of debate, but also of adventures and how things worked out, and whether they sacrificed propitiation to their particular deity, whether they had to go back home and learn from the priests and so on. So it became another contention for adventure. And we took every opportunity.
In the later stuff, it's pretty well understood that you're channeling the divinity of your gods. And in these earlier editions, that was still the case, but it was much more mystery.
Yeah, when you slept, you woke up, you had your spell. That's basically how it was always dealt with.
Right, yeah. But thematically, it was still the same, but it was handled a lot differently with a little bit more.
There's still a lot of ambiguity.
Ambiguity?
That word there.
That one?
Around a cleric and a druid, and even more so with magic users, because there's a whole mystery of where do they get their spells. And with clerics in particular, clerics and druids, it's a religious component that some players are not comfortable with, either playing or having at the table. Because you can have a player who's really into a cleric, doesn't matter who the deity is, but some players may feel uncomfortable with just the concept of religion being at the table, as brazen as some players can play them. I've seen it a couple times, and I've seen it the other direction, where I actually had a player who was a priest at the table playing a cleric because he wanted to see us play, because he was convinced that we were sacrificing children and small cats and wanted to see for himself. And I told him, we're not going to sacrifice children if a priest is here, for crying out loud. We're going to sacrifice a priest.
We'll go to the Chinese food place down the street.
So he came, and he was playing a cleric, and we got around some undead, and everybody looked at him like, it's your turn to do something.
Right.
And we explained it to him. Turn undead. You get up and you say words from your god. He stood up, Bible in hand, and spouted half the movie of The Exorcist. and Rick, who was running, says, I'm not even going to roll that. They leave, and some of them just die.
Right.
So,
but to your point, not everybody's comfortable with
that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not comfortable with the religious component of being a cleric.
Yeah.
So, if you have a player like that, I would suggest finding out ahead of time, and the players who are running clerics and druids can kind of downplay it some.
Sure. I also suggest, instead of calling them gods, call them deities. It's a little less of an intrusive term, and it also makes it a gameplay mechanic instead of let's going against our religion because we have one god and pagans have several gods, and these people have all these
Right.
gods.
So-
So deity, if you use that, like in the one book, Gods, Demigods, and Heroes,
Right.
which was a great book, that kind of started off some of the satanic panic because they use the word gods instead of deities, demi-deities, and heroes. It would have been a little bit easier.
It made it seem more like you were studying the Greek and Roman mythology.
Yeah.
Instead of actually, this is a god that somebody's going to make homage to, just like you would.
And, and they even have the propitiation in there and what their holy days are and what their
sacrifice.
sacrifice is, the religious symbol and so on. So there's a lot of information. What they didn't understand is at the time Gygax was in college. D&D was actually his thesis. He was doing all of this study and so like that, and he was turning this stuff in.
Right.
And so he delved into Native American. He delved into Norse mythology. He went all around the world, pulled things, and then gave them stats. Now I personally think he went a little overboard when he gave Jesus stats, but that's me. That's right. That's all we ever dealt with. So it's like, and the articles that came out didn't help. Jesus was a 3rd level cleric. I remember that article. It was hilarious.
But which edition, though?
So a lot of those things created some issues, but the bottom line is we make sure in the 0 class what people are comfortable with, what they're not, and then avoid them, but utilize terms that are non-combative, that are non-abrasive, and deities instead of gods is just one of those terms.
Make sure the terms, whatever you do use, are very accurate to what you're trying to get across, though. Some words that are, what was that word, ambiguity?
Yes.
Ambiguity,
Yeah.
Ambidextrous? Was that it? No.
You don't want to use words that make people try to figure out what it is you're trying to get across. Use words that are very clear. Sometimes I have difficulty with that. So anyway, cure light wounds. Ta-da! Still in the red box. In the red box, 1 die 6 plus 1 to heal your companion after they got ran through.
Yeah.
So 1 die 6 plus 1.
Plus 1.
Well,
Plus
which is
1.
not bad when you consider that most everybody had 1d6 HP.
Or 1d4.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or 1 die 4. So yeah, you could almost bring them back from near death.
Yeah.
And again, the clerics can wear lots of armor. They can fight in combat. They're a very effective fighter, but they cannot use edge weapons. It must be a bludgeoning, dull weapon.
Now understand, when we started playing, we would write characters up on a 3x5 card, just a little 3x5 index card.
Yeah,
They're easier to throw away.
Yeah, you would roll, and it states in here 3 die 6, and you rolled it in order: strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, charisma. We even added comeliness later.
Yes,
where it was the actual prettiness of the person rather than how they came across. I don't know how I rolled a 1 on 3 6-siders, but it always happened.
It's a negative modifier.
It was. It had to be.
My mommy says I can't play with him anymore.
Yeah.
So but we would do them on 3x5 cards because our characters died a lot. I mean, when you got 1 6-sided dice of hit points and you come across a monster that has 2, even with 3 or 4 of you, sometimes a character would die and there was no way to bring him back. Now we would haul them back and have somebody resurrect them and then owe them money and spend the rest of our adventure and career paying that guy back for raising our cleric back so he could get 1 die 6 plus 1.
We had a standing rule. If you died when we were out trying to quest for money to bring you back the first time, we didn't do that a second time. You're dead.
No.
Our table rule, you had, when we started a level 1 game, you had to have 3 characters at the table that night. 3.
Yep.
Minimum 3. Because you're going to die.
Minimum 3.
You're going to die.
If your character got to 3rd level, you got to graduate to a 5x7 card.
Yes, the slightly larger card.
That's right. If you hit 5th level, you had enough spells that you got the 5x7 ring binder, where you could start putting stuff in on adventures and your spells. Wait a minute, I got spells here. It's tabbed.
Yeah.
And you'd go from there. So Yeah, it was a lot different play style.
So the hit die is a die 6 for hit points. We talked a little bit about alignments. Alignments are now clarified to pretty much like we see carried forward for the rest of the editions.
All 9.
Cure light wounds, we have 1 die 6 plus 1. We can turn undead. We talked about our gods and spells a little bit. Weapons, armor, and combat. I think we covered all the key points.
Well, one of the things we've got here, though, is we're starting to see expansions into the spell list and expanded capabilities. That this was true of all the classes at the time, but I've always enjoyed playing the cleric, particularly once we got Forgotten Realms, and you could be a cleric of tier.
Yeah.
And I just go and hammer things for justice.
Yeah.
But cleric has always been very neat. These were 80s. No, wait, Frank Mayer 83. The preface. Preface.
Oh, that's what I was looking here. Yeah, 83.
Yeah.
83. See, before that, we had this. Supplement number 1.
Yeah.
Greyhawk. And Greyhawk laid things out for us a lot better than the 3 original books, because it showed here what everybody was complaining about. Hey, watch the dice for these guys rolling 6. And it started laying it out. Fighter, 8-sider, magic user, 4-sider. Cleric, 6-sider. Thief, 4-sider.
See, I thought I saw that in one of those.
Yeah.
See,
And it was down here. So then we start working with clerics, and they actually got them to the 20th level
in the Greyhawk expansion.
In the Greyhawk expansion, to where you actually had 1st through 7th level spells, and 7th level was the highest spells that they had for a cleric at that time,
which is an improvement because it was up to 5.
And you could get up to 8 of 1st through looks like 6th level, then 5 7th, and 2 8th level. Once you got higher than that, we just followed the same scheme and built our own. And because you could get as high as you want, and some of us were running around with 100th level characters, you know, and being
did you say
everything
that,
being 6.
Did you say they went up to 7th level clerical spell?
Yes,
yes, they went up to the 7th level in Greyhawk, and that's when it started.
In the blue book, it only goes up to 6th.
Wow, so they're going off the straight ODD.
Yeah, right here.
And because this was 76.
Yeah, this
is
83.
Put out.
Hold that up.
This is why we're doing this, guys. To see all the different nuts and bolts changes that were made from variation to variation.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's interesting, this Greyhawk book isn't the Greyhawk box set that we got first edition AD&D.
No.
So this was just a
this was
a slight rules revision and sort of codified.
It says right there, supplement 1.
Yeah.
So let's look at my tab says.
And
it's got a beach ball for a beholder.
It does. Yeah. And that's why he's stepping up to the plate with the flat of the sword.
Yep.
He's
like, ready to go.
Guys, watch this.
Yeah, watch this.
Update rule changes to combat NPC. That was a cool thing. Is this did a lot of work on NPCs and really brought NPCs brought those into play, and monster treasure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It really brought.
Well, there was a ton of tables in the reference sheets, but that expanded a lot.
So in our blue book, we're still 2 die 6 to do turn undead.
Okay.
And I didn't see any other.
So the blue again, guys. If you're following, this was the expert expansion in the original D&D or basic D&D.
ODD, as they call it.
So in the basic D&D, how this box set is labeled, this came out as one of the 5 boxes, labeled as a basic D&D.
Yeah.
So the cleric turn undead table here is the same as the red and blue, and even in the
right.
first
So they've
one.
duplicated it in this book
just duplicated it across. Saving throws are the same.
Yeah,
magic user
spells are about the same. So there wasn't a whole lot of change, looks like, in that particular printing.
Yeah.
Once they established it, they carried the core forward from the white box.
Yeah.
So, there we go. Let's go ahead and break into AD&D First Edition, as I promised before the break. And this is where we get our first hardback printing.